We finally built tall, but the first one we built taller than the building, taller than massive sailing ships like the Waver Tree, because they were the tallest thing. They're the original skyscrapers. They're much taller than any building. First thing we built taller than the ships was not buildings, but the towers of this bridge we're underneath now, and this is the Brooklyn Bridge. This is the first bridge built over the East River, and opens in 1883, which is really late in the day for a bridge. I mean, we're the biggest port in the world by the early 19th century. The seaport goes back to the 1600s, but this is the thing. Early 19th century, the East River is full of ships. Remember the Waver Tree, that's how big the ships were. So any bridge that went over the East River had to go in one giant leap so the massive sailing ships could fit underneath. No one could build a bridge this long or this high until someone invented something we now take for granted. That's the steel cable that holds up the Brooklyn Bridge. The man who invented steel cable in the mid-19th century, John Augustus Roebling, is the man who designed the Brooklyn Bridge. Longest bridge in the world when it opened. 1,595.5 feet. From tower to tower, using steel cables to hold the span, and steel girders built towers taller than any building had been built before. Now you don't see the steel in the towers because building with steel is new, brand new. People are nervous about new things. So the rolling, just to keep people calm, it was better to hide the steel inside stone, even though the new steel was stronger. We watched the bridge go up. It took 14 years to build. We saw the steel was working. When the project started, it's still all five-story city. Before the bridge is done, we're building our first skyscraper buildings, using steel girders with taller steel cables and hold up elevators and buildings for people safely. We break through the 5-story limit with steel technology, first used and proven by the Brooklyn Bridge. And you look back behind us, those are bridges built later when we trust the steel more. The Manhattan Bridge 1909, Williamsburg Bridge 1903. And the steel is out there for all to see, but that means you see right through the towers of those bridges. So you might think they're not as sturdy as the Brooklyn Bridge. Well, think again. Because when I do a tour on a bus, I can't take the bus over the Brooklyn Bridge. It's too heavy, not allowed. Nothing bigger than a van. But I can take the Manhattan Bridge, or I can take the Williamsburg Bridge. But those take vans, buses, trucks, double-decker buses, and subway trains can go over those bridges. And that's really impressive with the Williamsburg Bridge, because when I opened in 1903, the subway wasn't running yet. Look, we weren't even thinking about subways till we thought about steel, but they're working out by then, and ready for it when I got there. Well, that's what goes back to how the Brooklyn Bridge really changes everything. I think the most important thing about the Brooklyn Bridge is that when it opened, it was a bridge between two separate cities. New York was only Manhattan at that point. Brooklyn was its own city. Now, New York, just Manhattan was already in population by far the biggest city in the country. The grid plan worked. Brooklyn was the third biggest. It was big. There was over 1 million people then. But that was the problem. They were rival cities, which is why the Brooklyn Bridge is the worst route of those three bridges. Because the only way to get a bridge built between two rival cities, it had to go from City Hall in Manhattan to what was then City Hall in Brooklyn. Not a small route, because you had to keep the mayors happy. But the people of Manhattan saw the bridge going up, they saw the steel was working, they started to think about subways. Then they started thinking about how to get New York out of the problem it got itself into. That problem was the grid plan worked too well. This is the biggest city in the country because there are too many people living in Manhattan.
I mean, this is the perfect filming area right here.
Still basically now
You can go down.
still primarily immigrant neighborhood.
Bye.
This was good for over 160 years, different immigrants over the years, but still. There used to be a lot more than now. Back then, there was 10 times the number of people living on the Lower East Side than today. Yeah, it's unimaginable. It was more crowded than modern-day Calcutta. Lower East Side was the most densely populated neighborhood on the planet. It was too crowded. And that's why we built the Williamsburg Bridge, not to go to Williamsburg, to get out of the Lower East Side. But now imagine you go to a rival city and say, okay, for the next bridge, we want to build a bridge the most crowded.